Namaste. We are with Gautamji once again for our next podcast. And today we are going to do a very interesting topic, which is the law of attraction and true surrender to Sai Baba. So, Gautam, the other day, I had this, I don't know, it was quite strange. I had this feeling that we should cover this topic. I was thinking about it in the morning, and that very evening, I get an email from a devotee asking this very question, saying that I practice the law of attraction and I'm very committed to Baba, but internally I feel a conflict and I wonder if I'm being true to Baba or, could you shed some light on this? And then I said, okay, you know what, we definitely should cover this because it was no coincidence to have the thought before that email come.
Right.
And so, Gautam, I wondered if you could shed some light on these two teachings because, in one way, they are contrary to each other.
Right.
So, if we would like your insights on this.
Nick, firstly, thank you for having me back on this program. And regarding the law of attraction and the path of surrender to Baba, it is indeed an interesting topic. I must admit, I am not an expert on this, the law of attraction. I have read about it here and there, but I do understand the principle behind it. And so, yes, it is worthy of exploration. So, to begin with, I would like to say that this law of attraction is an ancient science. It is basically the science of vibration. And even the Mahavakyas in our scriptures, the great sentences, the great statements like I am that, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, etc., these are actually affirmations. I am that means I am not the limited body with a name, but that consciousness. So, this is a very solid foundation of the principle. Now, let's take a very simple example. One's mind and thoughts throughout the day could either be revolving around wealth or poverty. These are the two polaric opposites in duality.
Yes.
Right? Now, wealth, I do not mean just money. I don't mean just coins and currency notes. One could live a wealthy life, feeling richness and abundance all the time, not feeling lack. You see, we human beings tend to focus on what we don't have. But if we shifted our focus to what we have, our vibration would be a wealthy one. So again, it is a perfect science in that sense. Whereas if we focus on lack, oh, I don't have enough, that is called poverty consciousness. And the law of vibration is like attracts like.
Correct.
So if you are vibrating with poverty consciousness, it's not going to help you. You see? Whereas if you are grateful to God for what you have got and you are vibrating with wealth consciousness, then you will exude that quality yourself, that vibration. So, now having said that, let's come to the law of attraction as one generally understands it. Now, this says that perhaps one has a material desire. Let's say you want that car which you've been admiring, you want the perfect house, and so you visualize it. You act as if it's already in your possession, as if you are living in your dream house, driving your dream car, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Again, it is a science, there's nothing wrong with it. You see, because we don't want the audience to think that we are not in favor of the law of attraction. What tends to happen? Two things. One is we lose sight of the present moment because we live in an imaginary future. You see, so if someone is really making too much effort, too much doership, what will happen is they will always be living in their minds with these visuals which they are being asked to conjure. The present moment is lost. Two, if you do not get what you wanted, there is bound to be frustration. So these are what can sidetrack one's journey, you see. Now when we come to surrender to Baba, this really does not need an explanation. But when we see them together, what does it mean? When we see the law of attraction and surrendering Baba, if I'm a devotee of Baba, for example, how do I deal with this paradox? It's quite simple. If you are enjoying practicing the affirmations, the visualizations of the law of attraction, by all means go ahead.
Correct.
If you are struggling to, if it is a chore, if it's something you don't look forward to, then you have to consider dropping it. It's as simple as that. Now, if you are enjoying it, is it creating suffering for yourself or others? That is the next criteria. Am I really suffering? Am I questioning all the time? Is this really not suiting my temperament? You have to ask yourself these questions. You have to be honest with yourself. As long as something is enjoyed as a practice, so be it. But knowing that the results are not in your control.
Yes.
As Krishna has said in the Gita, put in all the effort you may, but know that the results are not in your control. You see, if you have that understanding, then I would encourage everyone who's following a law of attraction to go ahead. But invariably, one senses frustration. So this is a caution to this. You know, where there's frustration, where there's anticipation, there's anxiety. Is your life becoming more anxious because of this? Chances are it is.
You know, this actually takes me to something I would want to probe in one aspect of the law of attraction. Many people in their life would have experienced something that they've had a wish, it gets fulfilled. But at some point, I think even you have said this before, that wish, you know, itself then becomes the cause of misery. For example, if they want a particular relationship and it, you know, flowers.
Exactly.
So it takes me to one question that I see, that in the law of attraction, the assumption is made by the person practicing it that they know what is best for them in that moment.
Correct.
Whereas on the path of Baba, when you surrender your ego, your wishes to Baba, saying, Baba, you know what is best for me, now here is where it becomes a bit conflicting from the way I see it. That, you know, if one is very committed to Baba, and especially say they've been following the channel and seeing devotees like I and the more sort of advanced devotees.
Yes.
Now, if one gets more into Baba's Satcharit, you know, they are more involved with devotion. Here is where it could become slightly conflicting till, you know, they make the transition
Yes.
to, okay, you know, we are only at Baba's feet and no matter what happens, it doesn't matter. What is needed for us, Baba will give. So, Gautam, could you talk of that aspect of transition?
Well, Nick, that is true. After all, as Nisargadatta Maharaj said, that what comes unasked is what is meant for you.
Yes.
You see, because that comes from the universe without you operating your small will. So, you see, that is a high degree of surrender. Now, the question is, it's also a matter of age. When one is young, then one has these desires, one wants things. Let's say if someone hearing this podcast is 50 plus, they've already been through a large part of that process, that, you know, a lot of needs have not been met, wishes didn't come true, and therefore surrender is easier. So this is more so for those who are younger, who are having goals, ambitions, etc. So a large part of this, if not all, is predestined. That is why they say surrender to the source, surrender to Baba. If you can live that, that is the best. But if you do want to exert effort and you find the law of attraction attractive, then make no mistake. Do it if you feel like doing it. But now, knowing all these factors that we have just spoken about. You see, I'll tell you, now sometimes it is also important because I may have surrendered to Baba, but the thought processes in my mind may be very life negative.
Yes.
So an affirmation is needed to correct that. Just a simple one, let's just take it for the sake of discussing. I am peaceful, okay? That's it. Let's say that is the affirmation. Now, if someone with an agitated temperament and mindset starts reciting this affirmation internally, I am peaceful, peace, 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 that vibration is bound to have an effect.
Yes.
Because the opposite data has been playing along all these years in their mind. Affirmations are part of the law of attraction. So, in that sense, they are beautiful tools. You see, but we tend to do, rather than look at this science from these benefits, we hook on material benefits to them. Most of us do that. Material means even a relationship. Relationships, wealth, etc., etc. That is, I think, when it goes in that direction, there are
Correct.
pitfalls.
Correct. So basically, if it is seen from this aspect that you see the affirmations, then, and like birds of a feather flock together,
Exactly.
those vibrations, then it is healthy and fine.
Yes.
And when it goes into trying to steer life by how you feel it is best for you, then it is an area which inevitably I think everyone will realize its limitations.
Yes. So, and of course, you may be one of the chosen few where you practice the law of attraction and you have tremendous results. And if it comes easily, that means it was meant to, it was destined to. What we are discussing here is to ensure the person does not suffer while they are performing this practice. That is our intent. Our intent is just to point out the pitfalls and the dark areas to look at. I will give you one example. This is going back, I think, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I met a doctor from Australia and he had a cancer patient. Now, it was quite severe, the cancer, and the patient enrolled for one of the courses which were based on this theme. And it did not improve his condition. So he was very distraught. So he went back to them, the center which was teaching this, and said that, what do I do now, because my end is nearing. And they told him that you didn't put your heart and soul into it, that's why you haven't improved. Now this patient told the doctor whom I met from Australia, he told the doctor that if I don't put my heart and soul into it because my life depends on it, then who will put their heart and soul into it?
True.
So what happened is the poor fellow died with additional guilt.
Correct.
That guilt that you were not good enough. You didn't put your heart and soul into it, therefore you did not get the outcome you desired. You see, and so this doctor was telling me this, that as it is, my patient was having a rough journey at the end, and then he got saddled with this guilt, which made it even rougher.
That aspect one has to be very aware and cautious of
Yes.
this limitation. So especially if someone young is practicing it,
Yes.
to just practice this aspect with caution.
I had read a lovely book, I think it's more than 100 years old, called The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity.
Yes.
It had such simple tools which are actually only common sense. They would fall under the law of attraction bracket. For example, the author, I've forgotten her name, says that if someone owes you money, think of them as being prosperous. Don't think negatively. Oh, this person owes me money, he's not paying, he's this, he's that, and criticizing, blaming, and condemning. No.
Correct.
Think of them prosperously. That yes, there must be a reason. I don't know what the reason is, but have prosperous thoughts and you will get that money.
Correct.
Now, this approach makes so much sense to me, you see, because it's a science. We tend to always judge and condemn, and here it is saying exactly the opposite. If you want prosperity, which means in this case wanting your money which is owed to you, think prosperous thoughts. Simple.
Correct.
So, like I said, this book is more than 100 years old. There are ancient texts, there are ancient sciences which give very pragmatic advice. You see, I'll tell you, I recall reading something else. I don't know if it was from this book or in another book, but it made so much sense. It said that whatever you see visually,
Yes.
even that, if you want prosperity, you should see prosperous visuals. You should see abundant visuals. Visuals could be not just fancy neighborhoods. You could see beautiful green fields and valleys full of flowers. That is the abundance of nature, because all that gets imprinted in the consciousness.
True.
So, like I say, it is a very true science, a simple science, but in this materialistic era we live in, it has attached itself to objects and relationships that the me wants, because it only feels complete when it has those things.
Gautam, coming to Baba here, Baba had said, I will give you what you want till you want what I want to give you. So I'm seeing it as Baba will give you what you want is also in a way the law of attraction, where he will fulfill your desires.
Yes.
But ultimately, even Baba is saying that I will give you that till you want what I want to give you. So indirectly, he's already said it himself that in the beginning it is okay, you will ask for things, I will grant it.
Right.
But ultimately, that stage has to be transcended. So I think that is a big pointer as well for people practicing the law of attraction.
Very true.
That this is some commonality between that practice and Baba's teaching here itself. And Baba, in his own words, has said that, that aspect of wanting has to be transcended, because then comes surrender, where you go as per Baba scripts your journey.
Yes. There are 2 points here, Nick. One is that I will give you what you want. I can read it at another level. I may not know myself what I want. I may think I want something, but my soul call, you could say, or my inner wanting is something else.
True.
Now, when Baba says, I will give you what you want, I think he is addressing the want as he knows.
Yes, yes.
We may still think in terms of our desires.
I was saying it only in perspective to find that commonality with the law of attraction.
True.
Because see, typically when someone practices it, they have certain desires that they wish to have fulfilled.
Sure.
And Baba is known to fulfill the devotee's desire. I mean, he always does.
Right.
Maybe not, as you said, not like, oh, I want this and Baba will magically do it.
Right.
But he is known to, be very kind and, the miracles or many of these aspects. So I just found that as a commonality for someone very much into the law of attraction.
Yes, that is true, because he has said that. But more importantly, which is the second point I wanted to raise, that it's actually a very tricky statement he has made, because with that statement you feel that I'd rather want what Baba wants to give me than want something. What I mean is that wanting itself drops away
Exactly.
on its own. So he's really tricked us into this sentence, because
Yes.
I mean, look, it's logical common sense. Compared to what I want and what Baba wants to give me, which will I take?
Naturally, he's giving me absolutely. But
So-
this I do feel that if people practicing that path,
Yeah.
actually just contemplate on this, there itself there's some pointer hidden.
Yes, it's actually a very deep statement. I think it can be read at multiple levels, as can the Satcharita be read at various levels.
Yes.
So, yes, I think the audience should ponder over this statement specifically, and also look at, especially for those who are practicing the law of attraction, for those who aren't, maybe I don't know how relevant this conversation is, but for those who are, they can consider all these aspects we have covered.
Yes.
And then see how they feel like carrying on and in what direction they want to take on whatever they are practicing.
In that email that we had exchanged with that devotee, I told her, I said, just one practice I would recommend. And I said, just contemplate on one thing, that if you look back at all the things you've had in your life, whether like if you've had that consciously as a desire or you were just happy to have had it, and you give it some time, either you've realized that the joy that gives you is temporal, or that joy turns into pain.
Yeah.
And if you contemplate this enough, then you will really ripen to wanting what Baba wants to give you.
Very true.
So it becomes that transition. So I felt that could become like a pointer to reflect on, and it could be that common ground. So someone practicing the law of attraction shouldn't feel alienated from Baba's teaching or feel any guilt, as you said.
Yes.
But I did feel that could be the bridge.
But you see, also the last thing I would like to state on desires, like you so rightly said, when one has seen enough in one's life that many desires have not been fulfilled, some have, one realizes that this is not going to give true happiness.
Correct.
Now, as Rameshji would say, a desire can arise even in a sage,
Yes.
but the sage understands that whether or not the desire is fulfilled is God's will.
Yes.
Secondly, when the desire arises in the sage merely witnesses the desire arising and sees the course it will take. What happens is we run after the desire to the detriment of others and ourselves. We start pursuing it, wanting more of it.
Yes.
And that is why he would say, you can't kill desires by suppressing them or by fulfilling them all the time. But witnessing them is the remedy for the desire.
And Gautam, just before we end, earlier you had talked of the power of affirmations. It reminded me at the time of something Ramakrishna Dev was emphatic about. He said, see, if you repeat to yourself, I am free, you will actually become free. And if you say, I am a sinner, you will become a sinner. So he was very, very emphatic about this.
Exactly.
And that is exactly the same thing, you mentioned. So, when he himself had said this, it's something to be very cautious of one's inner dialogue.
Very
And
important.
from this aspect, all our thoughts in any way are affirmations.
Completely.
So it is nice to have ones that are conducive on the journey.
Yes, exactly.
Wonderful, Gautam.
Okay, Nick.
Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
We hope we can have more such sessions with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful, Gautam. Thank you.
Take care. All the best. Bye.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.